Hello everyone, this is your friend from Naruto Audio Fanfics, and we are back once again with a brand new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto became the gods, ShinobiMage, Jubi Power and a legendary harem of Natsumi, Evangeline, Kushina, Hinata, Ino, Sakura, Tamari and Anko Part 1. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to hit the like button, thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel for more amazing Naruto fanfics like this. So without wasting any more time, let's start today's fanfic. 10 years ago the Kyuubi no Kitsune, nine-tailed fox, appeared out of nowhere in front of Konoha and attacked. The Yondaime Hokage, fourth Fire Shadow, and Kiroi Senku, Yellow Flash, Minato Namikaze faced Kyuubi with everything he had, but the fox proved to be too much even for someone of his skills, so Minato had no other option but to seal the fox into his only son and heir using the Shiki Fuin, dead demon-consuming seal, turning him into a Jinchuriki, human sacrifice. Sarutobi had to retake his position as the Sandaime Hokage, third Fire Shadow, and created a law about Naruto's condition stating that it will not be revealed to the younger generation about his condition. While almost every ninja and some civilians honored the Yondaime's sacrifice, others considered the boy to be the reincarnation of the fox and have made some attempt to harm him. When he was first kicked out of the orphanage by the owner when he was 5, he was trapped by a mob in an alley that proceeded to attack him, but it was stopped by a group of Anbu who were in the area. When Hiruzen heard about the attack and the fact that the owner of the orphanage kicked him out, the man was beyond furious that these people had the nerve and gall to go against his orders. So Hiruzen decided to take things into his own hands and had Naruto live in the Anbu HQ for a few years, since no one was stupid enough to try and attack the base of the Hokage's elite ninja. When Naruto turned 6, Hiruzen started to teach Naruto the basics of the ninja arts whenever he had time to, or had his bodyguards teach him a little about it. Once Naruto turned 7, he talked to the boy privately that he was the container of the Kyuubi and who his parents were. At first Naruto was stumped that the man he looked up to sealed the most powerful creature on earth into him, but was ecstatic that he was the son of the most powerful and well-respected ninjas to ever live in Konoha. So ever since that day Naruto wanted to become a ninja and make his family proud, and Hiruzen was pleased that the boy took all the info so well. One day, when Naruto was exhausted from training, he decided to take a short nap, and in his mindscape he met Kyuubi, who happened to be a vixen, and also met another person. She was once known as the Jubi, who was defeated by the Rakudo Sennin centuries ago, but even before his time she was one of the most powerful mages during the age where magic existed. Her name is Evangeline Rorek. She was a part of a group who were the first to discover chakra as well as other energies like ki, reiki, spirit energy, celestial energy, and mana, but kept these a secret from the world. They were known as mages. When they discovered these energies, they were capable of performing things ninjas could only dream of. They had the ability to manipulate the natural elements, and not just the one they conjure using their own energy. They also had the ability to shape-shift into anything organic and non-organic, and could also create illusions that could actually injure their targets. Another thing they could do was summon mystical beasts that were even more powerful than the summons the ninja use today, and also had the ability to gain the power a human or demon is born with from only a drop of said person's blood. They could also remove a person's soul from their body and could also create weapons out of pure energy. They also went by other titles such as magicians, warlocks, witches, wizards, sorcerers, sorceress, and paladins. Evangeline was the granddaughter of a headmaster named Melchior Rorek, who was the leader of the mages and master in all the mage arts, including the dark arts, forbidden arts, white magic, black magic, alchemy, etc. She was a natural-born genius and a hard worker of the body and mind. She was so skilled in the arts that she was the first in her generation and the youngest to become a master mage, and was even more powerful than her grandfather was in his prime. But her current strength wasn't enough, and she wanted to become the first supreme grand master in the mage arts, since not one mage in history has ever gained that form of status in their lifetime. She wanted more power, so she traveled around the world, facing and gaining the abilities and souls of high-ranking demons, but one day every soul and ability she gained became too much and she ended up losing control of her power. This action resulted in Evangeline transforming into a creature called the Jubi no Akuma, 10-tailed demon, and went on a never-ending rampage that wiped every mage from existence including her family. Throughout the years she left a path of chaos and destruction until one day she faced a man known as the Rakudo Sennin, Sage of the Six Paths, who used his power to defeat her and separate her soul from the body and sealing both away. Thousands of years later when Minato sealed the Kyuubi inside Naruto, but the goddesses also sealed Eva's soul into Naruto. The reason why is because she wanted to repent for her crimes in the past when she was the Jubi by teaching and helping Naruto, the child of the prophecy in the arts of the mage. Ever since the three met Akemi, the Kyuubi no Kitsune, and Evangeline helped Naruto in understanding the concepts of the ninja arts as well as the mage arts. Hokage Tower. In the Hokage's office, Hiruzen Sarutobi was currently relaxing in his chair smoking his pipe while outside his office his secretary was filing some paperwork and placing them in the filing cabinets until the voice of a young boy spoke up. "Hey Kion-san." Said secretary looked over her desk. Standing in front of her desk was a boy who was 10 years old. He had shoulder-length wild spiky blonde hair with jaw-length bangs on the sides, younger Minato's hairstyle, a tan complexion, deep blue eyes with slit pupils and his canines jut from his upper lip. He was wearing a white short-sleeved t-shirt with blue flames licking the edges of his shirt and sleeves and had a leaf symbol on the front and the kanji fire on the back. He also wore blue cargo shorts that stopped below his knees and wore black ninja sandals and had a black backpack. He was Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, the son of the late Yondaime Hokage, 4th Fire Shadow, and Kiroi Senku, Yellow Flash, Minato Namikaze and aka No Mashin, Red Devil, Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze. Kion saw the 10-year-old blonde and smiled. "Hello Naruto-kun, how are you today?" she asked the blonde who smiled back. "I'm fine. Is Saruoji busy?" he asked while she giggled at the name he gave to the most powerful man in the village. "No, not at this moment. You can go on ahead and enter," she said, getting a nod from him, and he heads towards the office. Hiruzen was exhaling the smoke from his mouth until he saw the door open and Naruto walked in. "Hey Saruoji," Naruto said happily while the man smiled back at his surrogate grandson. "Hello Naruto. What can I do for you?" he asked the young blonde who removed his backpack, opened it, and pulled a book on basic sealing out. "I wanted to return this book back to you since I'm done with it," he said, getting a raised eyebrow from the man. "You finished that whole book?" Naruto, most Chunin ranked ninja, can't fully understand the schematics of basic seals, yet you're telling me that you can fully understand how to make and operate the seals? He asked, only for Naruto to blink in confusion a couple of times and nod. "Hi, I even used some of the blank scrolls you gave me and copied the drawings out of the book," he said, and pulled a small scroll out of his backpack and handed it to Hiruzen. Said man took the scroll, opened it, and took a look at the seals Naruto made. A few minutes later his eyes widened in amazement due to how well written and correct the seals were. "Naruto, this is incredible. There are no mistakes whatsoever. How in the world did you pull this off?" he asked in astonishment while the young blonde rubbed the back of his head. "Like I said Saruoji, once I understood the correct formation of the seals I just copied it from the book and made sure every form was drawn and set correctly," the blonde stated while Hiruzen remained stumped. "By Kami, this boy is a genius like his parents. If he can already understand the complexity of the basic seals in less than a few years, he'll be the youngest seal master in history and surpass even Minato in the sealing arts," he thought. "My boy, this is beyond incredible. So tell me, how has your day been in the academy? Have any of the teachers been giving you problems due to your condition?" Hiruzen asked Naruto. Ever since Hiruzen enrolled Naruto in the academy, he had to make sure that none of the academy teachers would ruin the boy's academics and stunt his growth as a ninja, and also had the headmaster check up and made sure they knew the consequences of denying a student the chance of becoming a ninja despite what they contained. There were a few times where he had to remove a few of them from the academy and have them replaced with competent teachers, and ever since Naruto had no problems. Naruto shook his head. Nope, I haven't had any problems at all with the teachers, and guess what? I'm already in the top of my class and made a perfect score on the midterm. Naruto said with a smile on his face. That's good, Naruto. You'll more than likely be Rookie of the Year in your graduating class. He states. Really? Well, to be honest with you, I really don't care for the title. I'm just doing so good because I want to make my parents proud of me, though there are some who think I'm cheating due to the fact that most of the girls think that the Tem Sasuke should be the top student of the class, and it doesn't help that he keeps glaring at me for doing better than him. Naruto explained while Hiruzen frowned. Just keep doing what you're doing, Naruto, and ignore them. He informed the young man, who nods. Thanks. Say, Tsuruoji, can I ask you a question about my dad? He asked. Hiruzen activates the silencing barrier and the security seals and nods. Sure, Naruto, what is it that you want to know? He asked the young heir. Well, I wanted to know if he gained his title from the Hiraishin no Jutsu, Flying Thunder God technique, or if it was for another reason. Naruto asked Hiruzen. To be perfectly honest with you, Naruto, he gained that title before even creating the Hiraishin no Jutsu. Your father wasn't just famous for his skill in Fuinjutsu but was also known for his speed being unmatched. There wasn't a shinobi alive aside from the current Raikage that could match his natural speed and reflexes, and there was a reason why. You see, Naruto Minato created a seal that was called the Gravity Seal. What he did with the seal was that once he places them on his body, he channeled chakra into them to make them heavy. He said. So the gravity seals made his body heavy and trained with the weight on right. Naruto asked, getting a nod from the man. Correct, and while training his body adjusted to the weight and made his body stronger and faster. Afterwards he would add more weight onto the seals to train his body even harder. He would also release the seals in order to adjust to the new speed he gained from training so hard until he was used to moving at that speed normally. He also placed seals in his clothes, but he did that for a while. He explained while Naruto had a look of amazement on his face. Wow, that's amazing. So the weights I'm wearing on my arms and legs are working in a similar manner, right? Naruto asked the man, who nods. On the blonde's arms were two black wristbands, similar to the ones Yusuke wore in the dark tournament, and he also had toe around his shins. Yes, Naruto, but don't try to make the gravity seals yet, since placing them on the body incorrectly or writing the seals wrong can be catastrophic. Just stick to the weights for now until you can fully understand how certain seals work, and afterwards I'll help you place the seals on your body, since I have plenty of knowledge in Fuinjutsu as well. He instructed while Naruto nods. You got it, Tsuruoji. Well, I'll see you tomorrow then. He says and heads out the door. Sarutobi chuckles as Naruto exit the office and snapped his fingers. Two Anbu appeared wearing animal masks. Neko, Taka, make sure he gets home safely and inform any Anbu in the area to keep a sharp eye on the civilians. He ordered. The two nod and shunshin out of the office. Naruto's apartment. Naruto managed to get to his apartment safely. Hiruzen gave him one when he turned 9, and it was one of the decent ones. The landlord was a veteran of the last Shinobi War, but he suffered an accident that caused him to end his ninja career, but he was kind to Naruto and gave him one of the apartments and only charged him for half of what the rent was a month. Naruto was pulling out his key from his pocket and heard a gruff voice speak up. Hey Gaki. Naruto turned his head to see Daichi. The man was 6'1" and was in his late 30s to early 40s with a few strands of gray in his black hair. He had a dark tan complexion and was muscular but not overly built. He wore a black short-sleeved shirt with gray jeans and black sandals. His hair was slicked back and tied in a ponytail, and he had reddish-brown eyes. Hey Daichi-san, how are you doing? He asked the man who smirks. I'm doing great, kid. Say, did you know that the lights in your place have been flickering on and off a lot? I had to check the power generator and thought the fuse fried. He asked, and the blonde chuckled sheepishly. Sorry about that. I've been working on some projects in the academy lately that required certain energies like electrical energy. That and I've been doing some experiments with lightning jutsu. Naruto stated. I see. Well, as long as it's nothing serious, I can let it slide. Well, I'll see you around, kiddo. He said and headed back down to his own apartment while Naruto opened his door and entered his home. The apartment complex was pretty big since it was meant for a family, but the extra space was good for him. It had 2 bathrooms, 3 bedrooms, a kitchen that had everything from a dishwasher, sink, microwave, stove, a refrigerator, and cabinets that were stocked with dishes, silverware, and food, as well as a living room that had furniture. One was a room that was made into a study for Naruto by Hiruzen, and it was also where he kept all his extra books and scrolls as well as weapons he can practice with outside. Naruto walked into his room and set down the bag and removed his sandals. Afterwards he leapt onto the top of his bed and lays back on it, closing his eyes. Mindscape. Naruto found himself in his mindscape, and it was in the form of a forest with mountain ranges behind it and the sun shining. He started to walk around the forest in his mindscape until he came across a sleeping crimson-colored fox the size of a horse and had 9 tails light around its body. Naruto smirks, walks over to Kyuubi and kneels down and hears her snore lightly. Naruto snickers and starts to stroke her behind one of her ears, making her purr lightly. She stirs in her sleep and opens her eyes only to see Naruto's grinning face. Hey sleepyhead, did I wake you? Naruto asked with humor in his voice while the vixen snorted and yawned. Considering the fact that all I can do in your mindscape aside from chasing rabbits is sleep. She replied and stretched her body to get the kinks out. Her body glowed and she shifted into her hybrid form. She was 5 feet 6 with long and smooth crimson red hair that had a few bangs falling in the front, and it was tied in a ponytail and stopped to the middle of her back. She had a heart-shaped face, deep red slit eyes, lips that were coated with red lipstick, and canines protruded from her upper lip. She wore a red kunoichi battle kimono and the dress was split on the sides, showing off her long and creamy legs, but she wore a pair dark red skin-tight shorts. The front and back of the dress was red with a black stripe going down the middle, and she wore a red kunoichi shirt that had long sleeves and wore a fishnet shirt that hugged her hourglass body and showed a little cleavage from her D-cup that weren't too big or too small. On her feet she wore a pair of red feudal ninja sandals and socks with red bandages wrapped around the middle of her feet, ankles, and stopped to her shins. Behind her 9 red tails swayed back and forth, and on top of her head were 2 red fox ears, and she had claw-like nails that weren't too short or too long. All in all, she was the epitome of beauty. So what is it that you need, Naruto-kun? She asked the 10-year-old blonde. Do I need a reason for visiting my favorite vixen Natsumi-chan? Naruto asked cheekily while she chuckles and shakes her head. Honestly, I just want to hang out with you and Eva-chan in my mindscape while my body rests for a bit. Say, where is Eva-chan anyways? He asked while looking around the forest, but that was when an orb of white light appeared in between them and formed into the shape of a human when the glow died down. The human was apparently female and seemed to be in her mid to late teens. She was 5 feet 5 and had a tan-like skin complexion. Her hair was long, smooth, and violet, and was tied into a high ponytail, stopping all the way down to her waist. Her eyes were violet with black pupils, and she had a heart-shaped face. She appeared to be wearing a dark blue bodysuit that showed off her hourglass figure nicely, and it had the symbol of a white crescent moon on the front of her outfit with black boots. Picture Dark Phoenix's outfit only in a different color. She also had a silver chain belt wrapped around her waist with round sapphire gems on them and wore a violet cape that was around her neck with a sapphire gem button attaching it together. You called Naruto-kun? Eva asked the young blonde. Hey Eva-chan, how have you been? Naruto asked the sorceress. I'm doing well. So what can I do for you? She asked, and Naruto smiled. For me? Nothing, I just wanted to talk with you too since I'm pretty sure it can get kind of boring living in the mindscape of a 10-year-old. He stated while she laughed lightly and sat on the grass cross-legged with her cape covering her body. It's not that bad, Naruto-kun. I personally like the peace and quiet. She said while Natsumi nodded in agreement. She may be a powerful demon, but she likes to be left alone and not interfere in human matters unless she had to. So how far are you in the spells I taught you so far? Have you made any progress? She asked Naruto, who nods. Yeah, especially with the magic barriers. Right now I'm working on trying to manipulate barriers around parts of my body and have them work as an absolute defense. The only problem is conjuring the barriers up instantly and making sure they're strong enough to withstand any form of attack. He explained while she smirked. I see. Performing such a feat takes a lot of skill and concentration for the body and mind, and it also requires your senses to be heightened at their max, and also the person needs to develop a sixth sense. She explained, and Naruto nods. Normally it would take years for even a master mage to master such a skill and would take them half of their lifetime to do it. Lucky for you, you have me helping in the arts since I practically mastered everything my grandfather taught me. She said with a grin on her face. You also might want to try working on the elemental barriers. Naruto raised an eyebrow when she said elemental barriers. Elemental barriers protect you from elemental attacks that are unleashed on you by your opponent. They are the fire barrier, water barrier, earth barrier, lightning barrier, wind barrier, light barrier, and darkness barrier. They can each withstand and absorb the element that an opponent uses against you. The fire barrier, for example, can withstand any fire attack, but water would weaken it. The same goes for the others except for the light and darkness barriers that can deal with any element used except for their opposites. She explained. Wow, that's really cool, he said excitedly while she smiled. Yes, it really is, especially since you don't need incantations to create them. She replied, and Akemi spoke up. Yes, as interesting as creating elemental barriers is how exactly do you know which one to use exactly so that you don't end up using the wrong one? Akemi asked the sorceress, who grinned. It's really not that tough to know when to use the correct one, unlike those times you had him do those chakra control exercises. She stated, and a tick mark appeared on Natsumi's head. Well, excuse me for trying to help him in controlling my yokai. He is my container, you witch. She snarled out, and Eva's eyes glowed violet and purple electricity cackled around her arms. Watch who you're calling a witch, you nine-tailed shag rug, she said, and this time Natsumi's eyes glowed red. Shag rug, I am the Kyuubi no Kitsune. By the time you were even a gleam in your father's eye, I was the ruler of the Makai realm and leader of the Fox clan. She roared using the big demon head jutsu. Yeah, and said ruler got her handed to her by a mere ninja. Eva shouted back, and also performing the big demon head jutsu. At least I wasn't a power-hungry mage. Who brought chaos and destruction upon the human world. Natsumi replied back. You wanna fight, you overgrown plushie? Eva shouted and got into a fighting stance with purple electricity surrounding her arms and legs. Bring it on, Soul Stealer. Natsumi replied while her tails flailed around and her fists ignited into red fire. Before they could even start, Naruto held his right arm out and his eyes glowed yellow. Kahibeo, restrain, he said silently. That was when yellow energy tendrils shot out of the ground and restrained both Natsumi and Evangeline, and the two blink in surprise. Now listen, you two, I didn't come here to see you both fight, since your little scraps will result in me getting a headache the size of the Hokage mountain, and that's something I want to avoid. Now then, are you two gonna behave and apologize, or do I have to put you two back in the cage for 2 months? Naruto asked as a giant cage appears beside him, making Natsumi pale and have a look of horror when they saw their old prison. No, not that. Put it away, put it away. Natsumi said frantically and struggled in her bindings while Eva's sweat dropped at how Natsumi was reacting to the cage. Sure, she didn't like it either, but Natsumi acted like the cage was a fate worse than death. Naruto, on the other hand, had a stern look on his face. Then apologize to each other and stop this senseless fighting, he said, and the two nod in agreement. Sorry, they both said at the same time, and that was when their bindings dissipated and they stood back up, dusting off their clothes. I have to say, Naruto, that binding spell was performed very well. I take it you got the hang of using them and the destruction spells I taught you without having to do the incantons FPR them, right? She asked and the blonde nods. Yep, though for higher level spells I still have to do the incantations. He stated and the female mage smiles. Impressive. Well then what do you say we work on your manipulation of the natural elements without having to use chakra and afterwards get you started in how to use your spirit energy and ki offensively and defensively? She asked and the blonde nods in excitement. Natsumi decides to speak up. In Naruto, once you're done with that, you and I can work some more in your chakra control as well as your fuinjutsu, ninjutsu, and the other shinobi arts. She stated, getting a nod from Naruto. The next day, Naruto woke up as his alarm clock went off and then shot a yellow lightning bolt from his fingertips and destroyed it without looking. Yawns. Stupid alarm clocks. He muttered while Natsumi and Eva giggled in his mindscape. TCH. I'll repair it later. I gotta head to the academy for my test. He said and proceeded to go take his shower and change clothes, ate breakfast, and grabbed his backpack and gear, but before he left, he did a crisscross sign with his hands and 20 copies of himself appeared in the apartment. Alright, you all know what to do, right? Naruto asked the group of cage bunchins, who nod in agreement and shunshin away to their private training ground. Naruto hoists his backpack over his shoulder and locks his door. Hey Eva-chan, should I teleport to the academy this time? Naruto asked the mistress of magic. I say go for it. Your manipulation in switching your energy is good enough for you to teleport, since the last time you tried you ended up losing your lunch. She stated while the blonde chuckles. His body starts to glow light blue and he suddenly flickers away. Ninja Academy. Naruto appears in front of the academy and sees the third window to his classroom. He grins and teleports to room 304. Iruka was currently in the room getting the tests prepared, unaware that Naruto had entered the room and was behind him. Yo Iruka-sensei. Naruto shouted out, causing the man to jump out of his chair with a kunai drawn facing Naruto, but then sighs. Darn it, Naruto, what have I told you about doing that? And how did you get in the class without me even noticing you? Iruka asked while Naruto just grinned. Sorry sensei, but I can't tell you. He said while the man raised a brow. Oh, and why not? The instructor asked with curiosity. Family secret. Naruto answered while Iruka raised an eyebrow. Family secret, huh? So I'm guessing you found out about your birth parents from the Sandaime? He asked Naruto, who nodded. Yep, but I can't tell you who they are, since the knowledge of my parents is a SS class secret that only I and a few people who were good friends with my mom and dad know. Naruto replied with a serious look on his face. Oh, I see. Well then, Naruto, since you are the first one here, you can take a seat while I do the preparations for the tests, okay? The man asked. Sure thing. He said and goes and sits in the third row of the classroom. He places his backpack near the side of his chair, opens it up, and pulls out a book that was entitled, The Basics of Nature and Shape Transformation. So far he was on the part that explained the manipulation of wind chakra. Man, the wind element is very interesting. To be able to create invisible and thin blades that can cut through anything which the enemy can't even see, as well as create powerful vacuums of air that can repel attacks, is amazing. He thought and he kept reading into it. Yes, it sure is, Naruto-kun, since out of all the elemental chakra nature, wind is considered to be the most dangerous due to it being wild and unpredictable, and it's also the most difficult to learn and master. Natsumi said in his mindscape, and Evangeline nodded in agreement. Indeed, and so is trying to manipulate the natural element itself. Even I had some difficulty in using that element during my training. It's also my favorite element to use due to the amount of destruction it causes. She said with a grin on her face. I'll say, but when you combine it with fire, talk about awesome. Natsumi replied. Yeah, but the one thing I loved doing with the element was create fast-moving gusts of wind, tornadoes, and hurricanes, and watch my enemies get blown away or sucked into them and torn to shreds by fast-moving currents and be crushed and impaled by insane amounts of debris. The sorceress stated with a dazed-off look on her face, while Natsumi had an ear-splitting grin on her face. Naruto, on the other hand, was sweat-dropping when he heard them talk about their love of the wind element. Oh, now that is my favorite part, especially when you hear their agonizing screams echo throughout the vortex, and she would have continued until Naruto coughed in his mindscape in order to get their attention. As interesting as it is to hear you two talk about your fetishes with the wind element, I need you both to keep it down. I'm trying to study. Naruto said telepathically while the two laughed sheepishly. Hey. Sorry, Naruto-kun. Eva said. Yeah, sorry, Killjoy. Natsumi muttered. I heard that. Naruto replied while Natsumi stuck her tongue out at him. While Naruto was reading, he heard the class bell ring and sighs as the other students started to walk in, chatting to each other while he put away his book and was prepared to take the semester test. Naruto watched as the rest of the students entered the classroom and went to their seats. Sitting beside him were Hinata Hyuga and the only surviving member of the Kurama clan's main branch family, Yakumo Kurama. A year back, when Naruto was visiting the Sandaime, he met Yakumo and her uncle, who was the head of the Kurama clan's secondary branch. She was born with a weak body, and despite her disability, she still wanted to become a shinobi. Her genjutsu-based Kekkei Genkei was strong, stronger than any other members, but she lost control of her powers once when she was with her parents because she was apparently the host of a demon known as an Edo. So her uncle came to Hiruzen for help and asked the man if there was a way for him to help his niece. Naruto volunteered to help her and stated that his tenant can get rid of the Edo and help improve her body. So during that time, Naruto entered her mindscape with the help of Natsumi, and Eva got rid of the parasitic demon while Eva used a regeneration spell to help Yakumo's body grow stronger. Hey Yakumo-chan, Naruto said, and Yakumo smiled at the boy who changed her life around and freed her from her burden. Hey Naruto-kun, are you ready for the test? She asked the blonde, who nods. I'm more than ready. I'm gonna ace this just like I did the last ones, he said, grinning while she giggled. So how is your physical therapy going, Yakumo-chan? He asked the Kurama heir, since after Eva used a regeneration spell to heal her weak body, Hiruzen had Yakumo do physical therapy sessions with his personal doctor to ensure that she can perform the physical aspects that were needed for the ninja life, and afterwards, Hiruzen stated that she was qualified and put her into Naruto's age group. After that day, Yakumo had been enrolled into the academy and became friends with Naruto, and she was the only one in his generation to know about Natsumi and Eva, and surprisingly she took it well due to the fact that she was once the host of a demon. It's going great, Naruto-kun. Even though my body is fully healthy, I still go to my therapist just in case. You can never be too careful, right? She asked, and the blonde nods in agreement. Yeah, it's better safe than sorry, he replied, and then felt someone tug on the sleeve of his shirt. He turned his head to see Hinata smiling at him. Oh hey Hinata-chan. Sorry I didn't talk to you earlier, he apologized while the heiress giggled. It's alright Naruto-kun, how are you doing, Yakumo-chan? Hinata asked the Kurama heiress. I'm fine, so do you think you'll fare well in the semester exam? She asked, and Hinata nods. I'll do well on the test, she said. While they chatted, a white-haired Chunin named Mizuki walked into the room and set his gaze on Naruto and frowned. Look at that thing just sitting there like he's human. Why doesn't Hokage-sama just kill that damn monster? The Chunin thought as he sneered at the blonde and made his way towards the desk. After Iruka got everything in place, he stood up and spoke up. Alright everyone, pay attention, he called out, getting the students' attention. Today you all will be doing the semester exam, which consists of you doing a written test, a shuriken and kunai throwing test, a ninjutsu test on the 3 basics, and lastly you'll be paired up in a sparring match against each other. If you score any lower than a 60%, then you will have to retake the class, but there will be extra credit at the end of the test if you want to get your score up. Now then, my assistant will be passing out the tests, which you have an hour to complete, and no cheating, he said, sending a glare to some of the gulping students. Mizuki proceeded to hand out the tests to everyone until he came to Naruto and sneered but placed the test down in front of the blonde. Let's see how you handle that test, demon. Only Chunin and Jonin ranked ninja can get those answers right, he thought as he went back to the desk with an evil smirk on his face. As Naruto turned his paper over, his eyes widened a little and a frown formed on his face. What is this? These are questions that only high-ranking ninja can answer. That Tem switched my paper and expects me to fail. He must be a Kyuubi hater. Naruto thought. Don't fret, Naruto-kun, I can help you with these answers. For me, these questions are a cakewalk. Eva assured the blonde, who smiled. Thanks, Eva-chan. Just help me with the ones I can't fully answer, since I can answer most of these. Naruto replied, and the sorceress of magic nods. Said blonde begins to work on his test, as do the other students. Mizuki's smirk turned into a frown as he saw the boy start writing in the exam he gave him. An hour later. All right, the hour's up now, place your pencils down. Iruka ordered, and the kids did that. Naruto was smirking due to the fact that he managed to finish the test Mizuki gave him, while said man went around and picked them up and then handed them to Iruka, who started to go over them while the students chatted with one another. When he went to Naruto's, and his eyes widened. What in the? He thought, and turned his gaze at Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki. Iruka called out, getting the blonde's attention. Yeah, sensei. Naruto asked the man. I need to talk to outside the classroom, it's about your test. He said with a questioning look on his face. Ha, I bet you his score was so bad that he's not even gonna get to take the other tests. What a loser. Kiba Inuzuka stated with a smug grin on his face. Naruto blinked and looked around for a few seconds. Iruka-sensei, did you hear a dog barking just now? Naruto asked innocently, while in his mindscape, Eva and Natsumi were snickering while those in the classroom laughed. Hinata and Yakumo covered their mouths and giggled while Kiba growled at the blonde. All right, everyone quiet down, and no, Naruto, you didn't fail the test. I just need to talk to you about it. He said, and the blonde nods and makes his way towards Iruka, who leads him out the door, and Mizuki was inwardly cursing, thinking he would get away with changing the demon brats test. After Iruka closed the door behind him, he looked at Naruto's test and back at the blonde. Naruto, out of curiosity, did you know this test had questions that only Chunin and Jonin could answer? Iruka asked the blonde, who blinked a few times. Yeah, I knew, and Naruto asked while Iruka raised an eyebrow. And Naruto, this wasn't the test the other students got. He paused for a moment and then frowned. Did Mizuki switch your test? He asked seriously. He probably did, I'm not sure why, but just go on ahead and test it, I'm pretty sure I got all the answers right. Naruto replied. Are you sure? I can give you another test. He asked, and Naruto shook his head. I'm sure, sensei. Go ahead and grade the test. Naruto replied. Iruka looked at him for a few minutes and sighs. Very well, Naruto. Come on, you still have the other tests to do. He said as he opened the door and let Naruto in. As Naruto went back to his seat, Iruka gave Mizuki a look that meant he was in trouble. That was when an Anbu wearing a tiger mask appeared before the teachers. Mizuki, the Hokage would like to have a word with you. Tora said, which made Mizuki frown. May I ask why? We are in the middle of a test after all. He asked. The Hokage doesn't need a reason why, he's your superior Chunin. He said in a stern voice and grabbed the man by his shoulder and shunsins away with him. Well, since Mizuki is gone, we'll go on ahead and start on the shuriken throwing. Everyone head outside. He ordered as the other students filed out and headed to the shuriken training grounds. Shuriken training grounds. After the students made their way to the training grounds, he started to have each student perform their skills in shuriken training. Sakura Haruno got a 5/10, Choji got a 6/10, and did Shikamaru, Kiba, and Shino, Ino got a 7/10, and Hinata and Yakumo got a 8/10. Sasuke went and also got an 8/10, much to the Uchiha's displeasure. Alright, Naruto, you're up. Iruka called the blonde, who nodded and moved forward, pulling out his own shuriken. Hey loser, don't trip over your own feet and get a shuriken lodged in your gut. Sasuke taunted while Kiba snickered, causing Hinata, Ino, and Yakumo to glare at him, while Sakura and the fangirls squealed out and saying Sasuke was so cool. Naruto, however, ignored the two but turned his attention towards the dummy targets and grinned. He channeled a small amount of his wind chakra into the edges of the blades, and Iruka was the only one to notice it but decided to let it slide, but was curious about how the blonde could know and use his elemental affinity so soon. Without hesitation, Naruto flings the shuriken at the dummies and they seem to go through the dummies and get lodged into the trees behind them. Ha! The idiot misses. Kiba laughed out while Sasuke had a smug look on his face. Not so great now, you loser. I bet a brain-dead monkey could do better than you. The Uchiha stated, which got laughs from the other kids minus the other clan heirs. That was when Naruto spoke up. Iruka-sensei, could you be so kind as to tell me my score? Naruto asked the man who nodded. Naruto Uzumaki, you got a 10 out of 10. He said while some of the students yelled in outrage. Abed stated that he was lying while the fangirls said that Naruto couldn't do any better than their Sasuke-kun. A tick mark appeared on Iruka's face and the man had enough of their ignorance. Shut up, you damn brats. He yelled, which made them all shut up while Naruto pulled some earplugs out of his ears. The reason Naruto got a perfect 10 out of 10 is because he hit the 3 dummies precisely, and not only that, he also targeted the other vital areas aside from the brain and heart, which gives him extra credit points. He said as walk towards one of the dummies and points to one of the tears in the shuriken. See, he threw the shuriken with such accuracy and precision that they went through the dummy. Had it been a real person, she would have been killed. He finished explaining and smirks at Naruto. The other students remained silent while a certain Uchiha growled out and glared at Naruto for upping him once again. Said blonde walked to where Hinata and Yakumo were and gave them a thumbs up while grinning, which made the two giggle. Kiba growled as he saw Hinata near the blonde and swore to make him sorry. Now then, head to the taijutsu training arena. He ordered, and they did. Hold on a minute, Naruto. Said stopped in his tracks and looks at Iruka, who walks towards the blonde. That was a pretty stunt you pulled there. Infusing your affinity into the edges of the shuriken blades. He said with a small grin on his face, which made Naruto's eyes widen but return to normal. I never would have guessed you to have a wind element, since they are rare in the village, since only the Yondaime and the Sandame's son Asuma Sarutobi were the only ones in the village that had the element. Naruto on the other hand rubbed the back of his head, smiling sheepishly. Thanks, though I have a long way to go before I can actually use the element at its fullest, but I'm pretty good in controlling it so far. The blonde stated as he headed back towards the rest of the group, as did Iruka. During the taijutsu matches, Naruto was talking with Yakumo and Hinata. So Hinata, how's the little firecracker and Hisumi Okawa-san doing? He asked the heiress, who giggled when he called her little sister Hanabi a firecracker, since the 6-year-old girl was always full of energy and reacts to the simplest thing. He also called Hinata's mother Okawa-san, since the woman and her husband Hiyashi were best friends with his parents, and Hisumi saw Naruto as the son she always wanted. They're both doing fine, though Hanabi has been complaining about you not visiting as much as you used to. She said, which made the blonde rub the back of his head sheepishly. Yeah, I know, but I've been really busy lately, so I don't get as much free time as I used to. He explained, and they saw Ino punch the lights out of some civilian student due to the fact that he made an off comment about fighting a dumb blonde. Iruka's sweat drops when he sees said student sprawled on the ground with an imprint of Ino's fist in his face. Ouch. I guess all that after-school training with us has improved Ino's right hook. He said jokingly as the blonde pumped her fist in the air and grinned. Indeed. Said a stoic voice, which surprised the three when they saw Shino standing behind them with his hands in his pockets. Man, Shino, you got to warn somebody when you do that. I almost had a heart attack. Naruto said jokingly while the young Aburame tilted his shades up a little. My apologies, Uzumaki-san. I didn't mean to startle you. Shino said, which made Naruto sweat drop. Dude, I'm kidding, there's no need to take it seriously and stop calling me Uzumaki-san. Just Naruto will work, buddy. He said while the bug user nodded. Very well, Naruto. Hinata-san, Yakumo-san, how are you two faring? He asked the two, who smiled back. We're doing fine, Shino-kun. Hinata said, and Yakumo nodded. Say, Shino, I have a question about how your clan's abilities to use insects in battle. Naruto said while the Aburame looked at Naruto for a while and spoke up. What do you wish to know? Shino asked the blonde. Aside from the Kikaichus that reside in your body, can you use other insects or arachnid types in battles? Naruto asked the bug user. Shino thought about his answer and spoke up. Theoretically yes we can, but we prefer to use the Kikaichu in our battles since we're more affiliated with them than other insects. Why do you ask? Shino asks while the blonde shrugs. Oh, just curious. I mean, I know your clan specialize in espionage, tracking, and capture, though I always wondered why you never tried to use other insects or arachnids like scorpions, spiders, or members of the ant family like wasps or hornets. Naruto answered. I see. Well, we normally communicate with those types and use them for tracking and gathering info like we do the Kikaichu, but it's rarely been done unless necessary. Shino answered and Naruto nods. Wow, if you ask me, that's pretty cool. Naruto stated, which made Shino raise an eyebrow since most people would think that members of his clan were either gross or freaks. That was when Ino approached the group. Hey Naruto-kun, did you see that? I showed that jerk not to underestimate us blondes. She said with a big grin on her face. Aside from Hinata and Yakumo, Ino developed a crush on Naruto ever since he scared off those bullies when they were 7 years old, and the blonde also met her parents who were good people and didn't blame him for his condition. Yeah, I did, Ino-chan. That was a sick right hook you gave the guy. I think you knocked out some of his teeth. He said jokingly while the female Yamanaka blushed and rubbed the back of her head sheepishly. Thanks to all that after-school training the four of us did, though I wish you could convince that lazy clown Shika and Choji to join in. Seriously, those two can be such a pain with Shikamaru saying things are troublesome. She muttered while Naruto shrugs. You can't only do so much. For Shika you'd need a miracle to get that guy to do anything. Naruto stated and Ino's face brightened up. Oh, I think I can convince him. My mom keeps this wicked-looking club and whip in her closet in case my dad does something stupid. She stated with a grin on her face which made the four sweat drop. Ino, that's inhumane, violent, and it's possible you might kill him with those objects. Yakumo said with a deadpanned expression and Ino blinks a couple of times. And your point? She asked, which made the genjutsu user almost stumble over and look at her in shock while Naruto's sweat drop grew. Hinata remind me to keep every sharp, pointy, throwing, and explosive object away from Ino, especially when she gets mad. And I thought Ten-chan was dangerous with weapons and explosives. He muttered and said bun-haired girl, who was working on her kunai throwing, sneezed. During the matches, Hinata went up against a fangirl named Amy, who in a sense was pathetic since the heiress knocked her out with a backhand to the temple. Yakumo went against Sakura Haruno, and like Hinata's match was over in less than a few seconds since said pink-haired girl made an off comment about her hanging out with a clan-less nobody who cheated in every test make her Sasuke-kun look bad, and Yakumo responded by kicking the girl dead in her large forehead and leaving an imprint of her foot on her forehead, which made most of the students, especially Naruto, Eva, and Natsumi, laugh. Next was Shino's match, and he faced off against a civilian student and won. Choji and Shikamaru had their match, with Shika forfeiting before the match even started, saying that it would too troublesome for him to face Choji since the boy was bigger than him. And he wonders why his mother and the other females beat them senseless. Naruto mutters while Natsumi and Eva nodded in agreement. No kidding. This guy reminds me of a black mage I knew when I was a kid. I believe his name was Naga. Talk about a lazy. My grandpa almost sent him to the Phantom Realm for all eternity. I wonder if the Naras are related to him. Eva asked from his mindscape. Iruka was looking at his clipboard and sighs. Unfortunately, the next spar will be a three-way match against Naruto Uzumaki, Kiba Inuzuka, and Sasuke Uchiha. He said and saw some of the students gasp while Kiba and Sasuke smirked. Naruto on the other hand didn't look worried at all and made his way towards the ring with his hands in his pockets. Do you think Naruto-kun will be okay? Ino asked Hinata and Yakumo, who smiled. He'll be fine, Ino. I highly doubt that Naruto will even have to try against those two. Yakumo stated while the Yamanaka blinked a few times. He's really that strong? She asked with interest. I mean, I know he's strong due to all the physical training we do with him, but just how strong is he? The two girls grinned. Oh, you'll see, they both said at the same time. Back at the arena, Naruto walked in the middle of the sparring ring and set his gaze on a smug Kiba and Sasuke. Ready to get your handed to you, Uzumaki? Kiba taunted with a grin on his face while Akamaru sat at the sideline. This won't take long, Sasuke said arrogantly. You're right, Uchiha, it won't, especially when I have you and Sir Stink a lot over there taste the dirt. Naruto said calmly while they glared at the blonde. Alright, you three, this is a taijutsu only match, so no ninjutsu are allowed. The last one standing is the winner. He finished and got a nod from them. Ready? He asked as Kiba and Sasuke got into their clan fighting stances. Naruto pulled his hands out of his pockets and gets into a loose stance and seemed to sway slowly, which confused most of the students since they've never seen a style like that before. Hajime, Iruka called out, and without hesitation, both Sasuke and Kiba charged at Naruto, intent on taking him out. Naruto, on the other hand, was smirking inwardly as Kiba came first and swung a right hook at Naruto's face, and said blonde stepped to the side without even trying, grabbed Kiba's wrist and kneed him in the gut, causing the Inuzuka to spit up. Sasuke made an attempt to hit Naruto in his blind spot, but said blonde grabbed Kiba by the hood of his jacket and pulled the surprised Inuzuka in the spot he was formerly at, and Sasuke punched Kiba in the jaw and Naruto released him while Kiba was sent sprawling onto the ground and skidding out of the arena. Sasuke, who was stunned at what happened, never saw Naruto's incoming fist strike him dead in the temple, made him stumble backwards, clutching the side of his head with one head. Naruto sprinted towards Sasuke, and when he was close enough he planted his hand on the ground, spun his body doing an instant 180, and sweep kicks the Uchiha off his feet, making the boy fall on his back. Before Sasuke could realize what happened, Naruto delivered an elbow drop to the prick's chest, making the Uchiha cough and get the wind knocked out of him. Said blonde got back up and dusted his shorts off. You were right about one thing. This match didn't take long, he said as he turned his back and walked away. Sasuke slowly stood up and glared at Naruto's back with anger in his eyes. I'll show you, loser, he said, and started to perform a few hand seals and inhaled air into his lungs. Iruka saw this and his eyes widened. Kaden. Gokyaku no Jutsu, Fire Release, Grand Fireball. Sasuke unleashed a large fireball at the blonde's back. Naruto turned his head only to be engulfed by the flames. Naruto, Hinata, Yakumo, and Ino cried out and ran towards the arena while Sasuke looked smug at what he did. Iruka cursed for not being quick enough to stop the brat and was getting ready to use a water jutsu to put the flames out, only to see Naruto walk out of the flames with his hands in his pockets and not a burn marks on his body, much to everyone's shock. But what surprised them even more was that there was what appeared to be a red barrier formed around him, but then it faded away. Said blonde was glaring dangerously at Sasuke and cracking his knuckles. I was taking it easy on you, Tem, but now the kitty gloves are off. I'm gonna give you an kicking that even your grandkids will feel. He snarled out while Natsumi and Evangeline were in chibi form, waving pom-poms and cheering for the blonde to beat him senseless, but that train of thought died when Iruka appeared in between them. Enough, he said sternly, but then glared at Sasuke, who had the nerve to cringe. You Sasuke Uchiha are coming with me to have a chat with the headmaster about your actions in endangering your fellow classmate, he said as he grabbed the Uchiha by the back of his collar and dragged him off to the office while the prick's fangirls were screaming and saying he couldn't do that to the last Uchiha, with Sakura being the loudest. A tick mark appeared on the man's face and he stopped in his tracks. Shut the hell up and get your asses back into class, he yelled, which made the girls shut up and scurry back in while the males and few females sweat drop. Wow, was all Naruto said while Hinata, Ino, and Yakumo ran towards Naruto. Naruto-kun, are you alright? Hinata asked worriedly while inspecting the blonde for any injuries. I'm fine, Hinata-chan. That fireball was barely even hot, he answered, trying to calm her down. Well, that's a relief. I thought you were barbecued in that flame. Say, what was that red barrier that formed around you when you walked out of the flames, Naruto-kun? Ino asked. Oh, that was a technique I created that protects me from fire-based jutsu. He said. Technically, Eva-chan taught me how to make and create my own version. He thought while the mistress of magic was grinning at the praise she was given while Natsumi was sulking under a tree pouting. Really? Is it possible for anyone to learn it? Yakumo asked while Naruto thought about it. Honestly, I don't know since I just started working on it. He answered. Well then, let's head back in class, ladies. He said as head back in the classroom. After school, Naruto, Hinata, Ino, and Yakumo were in a training field and the blonde had a few scrolls out. Hey Naruto-kun, what are these scrolls for? Ino asked the blonde. These. Oh, they're your new weights. He answered and saw their eyes bug out. More weights. Come on Naruto-kun, when are you gonna teach us something cool? Ino whined with a pout on her face while Naruto snickers. Don't worry your pretty little blonde head, Ino-chan. He replied, making her cheeks turn pink. I'll teach you guys something aside from chakra control and doing physical workouts soon, but for now we need to work on your stamina, increasing your chakra reserves, and make sure you're all physically fit. He said as he opened up the scrolls, and in a puff of smoke, more weights appeared, but these were gray. Yakumo blinked a few times and looked at the weights. What's so special about these weights? Yakumo asked. Naruto grinned as he picked one up. I had these weights custom made by a blacksmith and shop owner who was a good friend of my teammates, and I happened to be good friends with his daughter. Now, unlike the weights I gave you, these were made from a special metal that can absorb a certain amount of chakra into them depending on the user. He stated. Now go on ahead and remove the old weights I gave you girls off your wrists and ankles. The three rolled up their sleeves and pant legs and took off the weights, and they hit the ground, creating small craters. Okay, when you put these on, divide your current weight individually in each weight using your chakra. He instructed, and they started to place the new ones on and add chakra that'll match their weight. When they did that, they fell on their butts with wide eyes. What the? Ino said in shock while Naruto snickered. Is this how much I really weigh? The other three had the same thoughts while Naruto spoke up. Yeah, you see, when you divided the mass of your body with your chakra and add it to those weights, you are practically training in your max weight instead of just adding weight like you did with the old ones. He stated while their eyes bugged out. Wait Naruto-kun, what about you? Hinata asked. Oh me, I'm wearing the same weights you are. He answered with a grin on his face. Now try to pick yourselves up, but be careful. You don't want to injure yourself. He said while they struggled to get up. Darn it Naruto, how can you wear these things? A frustrated and struggling Yakumo asked the blonde, who I smiled. Oh, I've been doing this since I was 6 with my guardian who is an Anbu. He stated. There is a good side to this though. Once you're used to working out in your maximum weight, your body will get accustomed to it and you'll get stronger and faster. He explained. So for now we'll work on you guys getting accustomed to your own weight, but whenever you're not training, just release the effects of the weights and they'll deactivate. So for the rest of the day, the three kunoichi in training were working on adjusting to their weight by doing sit-ups, push-ups, and pull-ups, while said blonde did the same but did double the amount they were doing. Afterwards, the three were exhausted and sprawled out on the ground, panting heavily. What's this? You girls are tired already. I've only broken a sweat. He said teasingly while Ino and Yakumo glared at the blonde. Shut up Naruto. Unlike you, we're not stamina freaks. The blonde Yamanaka stated while Naruto chuckles. Cry me a river Ino-chan. Naruto said as he looked at the sun setting. Well, training is over for today. He said as he pulled out 3 green pills from his weapons pouch. Here, eat these. They'll rejuvenate your body. He said, and they each took a green pill and swallowed it. A few minutes later they got up and instantly felt better. Wow, I feel better, thanks Naruto-kun. Yakumo said, smiling, as did the other girls. No problem, now let's get you 3 home. He replied and escorted the 3 to their houses. Naruto's apartment. Naruto made it back to his place, and after eating dinner, which consisted of grilled salmon and steamed rice, and changing into his bed clothes, Naruto went to his bedroom, laid back on his bed with his eyes closed. Mindscape. Naruto appeared in the castle and walks through the hallways and sees large portraits that consisted of mages, warlocks, witches, wizards, paladins, and other masters in the arts of magic. He suddenly came upon a large door and blinks. He slowly opens it, and when he enters he sees Evangeline sitting in a big blue comfy chair with her legs crossed and was currently reading novel with a black cover that had what appeared to be the image of a flying raven on it. "Hello Naruto-kun," Eva said as she closed the book and put it away. "So I take it you're ready to start on your training in the magic arts, right?" She asked the blonde, who nodded, but that was when a swirl of red fire appeared beside Naruto, and when it cleared, it revealed Natsumi in all her glory, and from the looks of it she was peeved. "Damn it Evangeline, do you know how long it took me to find my way around this damn labyrinth you call a castle?" She growled out while the female mage raised an eyebrow and had a look of amusement on her face. "Hey, it's not my fault your skills are redundant in the ways of navigation, queen of the Kitsune clan," she said, which caused a tick mark to appear on Natsumi's head. "Besides, Naruto-kun was the one who altered the mindscape and made the castle, so get mad at him," she said until the blonde spoke up. "And that would result in Natsumi-chan being caged and you not being able to read, or have you forgotten that this is my mindscape, Eva-chan?" he asked with a raised brow, and said Mage and Vixen had the gall to be embarrassed. "That aside, Eva-chan, what other forms of magic would I be learning aside from the ones you're currently teaching me?" he asked. Eva tapped her finger under her chin for a while and then smirked. "Oh, I'll be teaching you a lot of what I know, since I'm knowledgeable in every form, which consists of the light arts, dark arts, forbidden arts, white magic, black magic, alchemy, and necromancy. Not only that, but I also possess the abilities of those that I defeated, meaning you'll get the same powers I obtained during my travels, and I'll also teach you how to manipulate other energies that only I am capable of using, as well as teach you how to create your own weapons and how to augment your energy into your weapons and other magical items and artifacts like scepters, rings, swords, and other objects. I'll also teach you my version of the sealing arts, since my kin were the first ones who created it, since your ninja, monks, and samurai have only scratched the surface when it comes to a complex art such as this." She finished, and with a snap of her fingers, a large bookshelf full of books and scrolls appeared behind her and were separated in category. A huge sweat drop formed on the back of Naruto's head. "That's a lot of books," he said dully while Natsumi grinned and snapped her fingers, and a large shelf full of books and scrolls also appeared behind her, and Naruto's eyes bugged out. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me. I have to read every single one of these books?" he asked, horrified, while the two couldn't help but laugh lightly at the look on his face. "Oh, don't worry Naruto-kun, most of this stuff we will slowly pass into you brain, plus in your mindscape you control time, meaning you could read 100 of these books in less than 30 minutes. Eva stated. "Plus I will teach 3 magic arts that I myself created and mastered." "She's right, you know. Besides, you're already ahead of all your peers skill-wise, so this should be cake," Natsumi replied. "Plus, in case you've forgotten, I'm knowledgeable in both the ninja arts and demon arts, so you should be happy you've got 2 strong and teachers to help you," she said, posing for the 10-year-old who had the decency to blush a little. "Now then, let's get started with your training," Eva said as she got up from her chair with an evil glint in her eye, and Natsumi also had one in her eye. Naruto, on the other hand, was scared for his life. Morning. The sunlight hit Naruto's room and said blonde groans and opens his eyes. He looks around groggily and yawns. "Man, what night. Having all that knowledge crammed into my brain is torture. Thank Kami Eva-chan and Natsumi-chan slowed down the process, otherwise I would have passed out from brain overload," he muttered. "Hey Naruto-kun, before you get dressed and ready to leave, look under your bed. Natsumi and I left you a few gifts to help you out with your training," Eva said, and the blonde shinobi mage in training nodded while he got out of the bed and crouched down to under it, only to see what looked like a chrome case with a key lock and a key on top of it, as well as a scroll with black on the edges and a scroll with a Pactio symbol on it for a picture of what it looks like. "Go to the Negima Wikia site. He blinks and reaches under the bed to pull them out. Say Eva-chan, how did you get these here if I may ask? The blonde asked his sensei, who rubbed the back of her head and blushed in embarrassment. You remember when you gave me and Natsumi-chan permission to have free access to your mindscape as long as he didn't go beyond our boundaries? She asked and got a nod from Naruto. Well, apparently we can also remove the things from your mindscape and bring them in the real world after I altered the Shiki Fuan seal for Natsumi and got rid of that cage. She answered, which made the blonde fall over on the floor and shot back up. You mean to tell me that all that stuff you had me do in my mindscape since I lived in Anbu HQ I could have done in the real world? He asked in an annoyed tone while Eva's blush and smile grew. Heh, yes. She replied, which made Naruto slap his forehead. What, even I have my off days? Natsumi on the other hand snorted. Natsumi, did you know about this too? Naruto asked and said Vixen froze up. Natsumi? Naruto growled out and the Vixen was sweating bullets. What? I have my off days too. She lied and Naruto let out an annoyed sigh. Anyways, let's see what's in the case. He said as he grabbed the key, put it into the lock, twisted it, and opened it. When a clicking sound was heard, the top flipped opened and inside the case was a bunch of different colored orbs. Naruto looked at them carefully and blinked a couple of times. Go ahead, Naruto-kun, pick one up. Eva gestured. Naruto shrugs and picks up a green one and studies it. That was when his eyes widened when he felt the energy within it flow into his hand and through his arm. Whoa, what the? This energy feels similar to my magic-based energy. He said to himself while Evangeline giggled. That Naruto is a magical item that was known as materia, which is crystallized mako that was created by the mages from what is known as the life stream and allows the person who wields it to use magic and manipulate the natural elements around them depending on what type of element the materia is based off of. You see, the life stream is a river of spiritual energy coursing through the planet. It is also considered to be a swell of souls, a river of the dead's memories, and is the sum of all living things on the planet. Each new life, whether it's a plant, animal, or human beings, is blessed with spiritual energy from the life stream prior to their birth, and upon the organism's death, its spiritual energy returns to the life stream, taking back with it the memories of its lifetime, and allowing the life stream as a whole to grow and the cycle to continue. Depending on the color, materia can be a summon, elemental and non-elemental magic, a support item that increases your abilities, or you can add it to weapons and armor and they come in different colors. You can also level up a materia's ability through training. She explained. Naruto on the other hand whistled and set the materia back in the case. He then went to the scroll that had the Pactio symbol on it, unraveled it, and in a puff of smoke several books on alchemy, black, and white magic appeared. Great, more books. He muttered. Hey, now don't be like that. Almost everything I learned came from these books. No one said it would be easy, my mage in training. She said cheekily, and Naruto pouted. You're cruel, Eva-chan. Cruel and sadistic. He said while anime tears fell from his eyes while Eva and Natsumi giggled at how he was acting. You can blame my dad and my grandfather. I gained my mother's looks, but their way of teaching was passed on to me. She replied. Why does Kami hate me? He cried out dramatically while the two laugh at his state of anguish. Training room. Sitting on the middle of the room in the lotus position was none other than a 14-year-old Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. He was now at the impressive height of 5 feet 5. His hair was in the same style as his father's but had some red highlights in the jaw-length bangs. His canines jutted from his upper lip and his facial structure was more sharp and feral, being derived of baby fat due to all the physical training he did. He was wearing a black sleeveless muscle shirt that had a silver trimming around the edge where the sleeves should be and around the collar. He also wore a pair of black Anbu-styled cargo pants with a silver belt and a pair of black fingerless gloves with metal plates on top of them with spirals engraved in each of them, as well as a pair of elbow pads with the same engravings, and had a lean build. His eyes were closed and he seemed to be focusing. Remember, Naruto-kun, stay focused and keep your thoughts clear and your mind focused. Eva instructed as he got ready to use his telekinesis abilities. Said blonde nodded his head and he inhaled and exhaled. His body started to slowly rise off of the ground and float in mid-air, but he kept his focus and one by one each block started to slowly rise from the ground. Naruto's face scrunches up a little as he focused and the blocks started to slowly rotate in different directions. He concentrates a little more and the blocks rotate a little faster around him. After doing this for almost 30 minutes, he lets out a frustrating sigh and the blocks fall to the floor creating loud thuds. Naruto floats down on the ground and wipes the sweat off his forehead. Man, I'm still not used to using telekinesis that way yet. Oh well, I'll just have to work on it some more. He said to himself and sat up, getting the kinks out of his back and shoulder. I'll say this, Naruto-kun. Your skills in telekinesis are improving. Hell, it's much more improved than mine was when I was your age. I guess being the son of two prodigious ninja has its perks. That and having the Fox Queen and strongest mage to ever live sealed in your body is another advantage. She stated and Natsumi nodded in agreement. No kidding. Say today is the graduation exam, right? You gonna show that Uchiha prick up one last time? Natsumi asked with a grin on her face. Naruto chuckles and nods. Does Hinata blush whenever I tease her? He replied back. Heck yeah, I'm gonna show that smug brat up. I don't know how Itomi-chan fem. Itachi put up with him when he was younger. Natsumi on the other hand snorted. Aside from her mother, and that Obito kid, the Cyclops talks about the only good Uchiha is a dead one. They're nothing but power-hungry thieves who think they are Kami's greatest gift to mankind and deserve everything on a silver platter, and if you ask me, she did the smart thing in wiping them out in one night. Naruto on the other hand nodded too. Yeah, too bad she went rogue and killed those pricks. He quoted. Say, Naruto-kun, do you still have that vial of blood Itomi gave you? Natsumi asked the blonde, who nodded. Yep, though I'm gonna use it after I graduate. The last thing I want is those pricks, aka the elders and civilian council, getting on my case about taking their golden child's bloodline. Oh well, at least Tsuruoji put them in their place when they found out I was outdoing their precious Uchiha and wanted me removed from the academy. I swear the last time I saw him that pissed was when he found out his subordinates were trying to stunt my growth and when I got kicked out of the orphanage by that old hag. He stated. Indeed. The old monkey showed those pricks why he gained the title Kami no Shinobi during his prime. If I didn't know any better, I'd say he was the reincarnation of my grandfather, because even my dad was afraid of him if you pissed him off enough. Eva stated with a shiver, knowing good and well that her late grandfather was scary when he was pissed. Naruto snickered at this but couldn't help but agree with her and walked over to his closet and pulled out a deep gray hooded waist-length coat with pockets and a pair of black Anbu-styled boots. He also had a closet that had a variety of different sized scrolls that contained different weapons, just that he made, as well as field supplies. After putting them on, he grabs a black backpack and hoists it over his shoulders as well as his apartment keys. Once he closes the door behind him, he does a ram sign and a series of seals glowed around the outside and inside of the apartment, and a glowing Pactio symbol appeared in front of the door and a light green barrier formed around his complex and then vanished instantly. There, now no one can break into my place without getting electrocuted, or knocked out. So how should I get to the academy? Teleporting. Nah, that's getting old. Shunshin. Too boring. He said and thought about it for a while but then grins. I know, I'll use Shunpo, Flash Step, since it's a lot easier to perform than Shunshin. Naruto suddenly wisps away, leaving a small trail of dust. When he arrived at the academy and was about to enter the room, he paused for a moment, stepped to the right of the door and pulls it open only to see a gray blur aka Kiba seen flying out the open door and hitting the wall hard head first and slumping down with swirls in his eyes, groaning, and two imprints of a fist on his cheeks. Naruto's sweat dropped and poked his head into the classroom only to see a pissed off Ino with her right fist extended and a vein throbbing from her head. She was wearing a dark purple denim jacket with the sleeves cut off with matching purple denim shorts and also wore a black skin-tight shirt that hugged her body and black sandals. Yukumo also had her fist extended and she too was pissed. She wore a long-sleeved dark green kimono with a black obi sash that held it together with a pair of biker shorts under it and wore a mesh shirt under the kimono and dark blue sandals. Naruto walked into the shocked and quiet class and saw Akamaru was sitting beside a peeved Hinata who was gently rubbing him behind the ears while he was barking out an apology. Okay, what did the mutt do this time? Naruto asked Ino and Yakumo, who huffed up and folded their arms. That pervert tried to cope a feel on Hinata, and when we stopped him from doing so he shoved us and called us bitches for trying to stop him from claiming his girl, so we called the. Yakumo answered and cracked her knuckles for emphasis, which caused most of the boys in the classroom and the fangirls to back away from them. Naruto's eye twitched and made a mental note to hang the mud over the flagpole by his underwear again. Next time I'll hit him in a place that no boy likes being hit at. Ino replied, slowly cracking her knuckles, which made the blonde cringe but pat her on the shoulder. Iruka walked into the classroom with Kiba, who was painfully rubbing his throbbing cheeks. Do I even want to know why Kiba was outside the classroom with 2 imprints of a fist on his face? The instructor asked. No, nothing too serious. The runt was getting a lesson in the fury of a female and should consider himself lucky that they didn't plan on neutering him. He replied, which made Ino and Yakumo have an evil gleam in their eyes and smile dangerously at the Inuzuka, who suddenly shivered in fear, and Hinata responded by activating her Byakugan and sent a small dose of ki at him as a warning to stay away from her, and afterwards Akamaru ran to his master. Oh. Iruka's sweat dropped when he saw them and then ordered them to go take their seats, but had Kiba moved to the back of the class and sitting nowhere near Hinata, Ino, or Yakumo. Well then, everyone get to your seats so that we can prepare for the graduation test that'll decide whether or not you become genin for the village. It'll be divided up into a written test, kunai and shuriken throwing test, a ninjutsu test, and lastly a taijutsu test. He explained. Mizuki entered the room during the time the students were taking their seats. Mizuki, be so kind and pass out the test and don't screw up this time. He warned the silver-haired nin, who nodded glumly with a scowl on his face, since he was put a monthly probation period for what he did to Naruto and was lucky he could still be a ninja for the village. He took the papers and started to pass them out, and when he reached Naruto he once again sneered at the blonde and dropped his paper on the desk. Here's your test, brat. He spat angrily, and Naruto responded by sending a small and quick burst of killer intent directly at the man, who stumbled backwards, not watching his footing, and tumbled backwards and hitting his head on the floor, which caused the students to laugh as the man got up and rubbed the back of his head, muttering curses while Iruka sighs at this. Naruto was currently sitting in between Yakumo and Ino, while Hinata sat 1 seat behind them in between Shikamaru and Choji, and needless to say the blonde shinobi mage in training completed the test easily. The next test was on throwing kunai and shuriken. As they took turns, Naruto watched all the other students were called up to get their overall score on the kunai and shuriken throwing part of the test. Sasuke hit 7/10 targets with kunai and 9/10 with shuriken, which caused his fangirls to cheer out for him and was currently the class record so far. That is until Naruto took his turn. Naruto Uzumaki, you're up. Iruka called out. Naruto walked towards the targets and pulled a few kunai and shuriken out of his weapons pouches and had 5 kunai in the left and 5 shuriken on the right. He then got into a stance and set his gaze on the dummies, smirks, and throws the projectile weapons in a crisscrossed manner and with good accuracy and precision. Said weapons were embedded in each target and vital area that would be considered life-threatening to the enemy. Once again you've gained a perfect score. Excellent job, Uzumaki. Iruka praised. Said blonde grins and walks back to the stunned group and ignored the glares he got from Sasuke, Sakura, and Kiba, as well as the prick's fangirls. Afterwards was the ninjutsu test, where most of the clan heads performed their family's jutsu. Sasuke went next and approached a dummy and performed a perfectly executed Gukyaku no Jutsu, Grand Fireball technique, and got a 9 for it, since a jutsu of that caliber needed chakra levels above that of a genin's. Said Uchiha walked past Naruto with a smug look on his face. Try and beat that, you clanless nobody. He taunted, getting a glare from Hinata, Ino, and Yakumo. Said blonde looked at the burnt dummy and scoffs while walking towards another dummy. Hey Uke-chan, watch and learn. Naruto said back at the emo who growled at being called gay, and most of the males and some females giggled at the name. Sasuke-kun is not gay, Naruto baka. Sakura screeched. Hey Pinky McFlatchest, do us a favor and shut up because no one here speaks howler monkey. He snapped back, which made Sakura sputter in embarrassment while most of the class laughed their off at the nickname Sakura was given. Some of the Anbu who were watching from the shadows snickered quietly at the remark. Naruto performed a few hand seals at Jonin level speed, which shocked most of the class and inhaled air into his lungs. Kaden. Gukyaku no Jutsu, fire release, grand fireball. He exhaled and released a white fireball that was twice as big as Sasuke's fireball. When it hits the dummy, it is reduced to ashes and the ground around it is scorched. And that everyone is how you perform a real fire jutsu, and as you can see, bigger is always better. He said with a foxy grin that made the girls, minus Sakura, blush at his innuendo while Sasuke seethed in anger and looked ready to go ballistic. The hidden Anbu were gobsmacked when they saw the white fireball, and some of the female members also blushed at his comment and were glad they had their masks on. Next was a taijutsu test where Iruka and Mizuki would spar against the students in alphabetical order. So far the only ones who did excellent were Hinata, Shino, Ino, Kiba, and Yakumo. Shikamaru was around average, as was Sakura, since she didn't even bother doing any physical exercises and hardly ate. When it was Sasuke's turn, Iruka didn't let the last Uchiha show off as much as he wanted and ended up getting an 8, much to the prick's displeasure and the fangirls. And finally Naruto Uzumaki, and you'll be facing Mizuki. Iruka called out while said Chunin had an evil gleam in his eye. Naruto walked towards the arena with his hands in his pockets but stopped. Hey sensei, can you hold my jacket for me? I don't want to get blood on it. He asked as he removes the jacket, revealing his well-toned upper body, which made most of the females blush heavily and drool at his ripped arms and the muscle shirt that hugged his body like a second skin. Holy, when did Naruto-kun get such a ripped and hot body? Ino asked with a huge blush on her face. Hinata was beet red and sputtering while Yakumo had blood dripping from her nose. Said blonde walked into the arena and stood on the opposite side of Mizuki, who was smiling smugly. Don't get too Uzumaki. You have to at the very least hit me. He taunted as he got into a battle stance and intended to pound Naruto into the dirt. The Anbu on the other hand sensed the intent coming off of the Chunin and got ready to jump in and take down Mizuki should the spar get out of hand, since the Sandaime gave them instructions to keep a sharp eye on Mizuki. Said blonde cracked his neck and rolled his shoulders a couple of times and afterwards slowly cracked his knuckles. Be careful what you wish for sensei, because I'll do more than just hit you. He replied, which made the man frown while Naruto tapped his foot a couple of times before bouncing steadily off the balls of his feet and was in a boxing stance. Bring it on, boy. Mizuki taunted, which caused an evil smile to form on Naruto's face. As you wish. Naruto replied and suddenly vanished in a blur of speed, shocking the silver-haired Chunin, but then he hunches over, gasping for breath due to the fact that Naruto's fist slammed into his gut. Naruto grinned while pulling his fist back and then grabbed Mizuki by his leaf headband, and delivered a chin buster to the man's lower jaw with his right knee, making him stumble back a little, and finally Naruto leaps into the air and performs a powerful aerial roundhouse kick into his chest, sending Mizuki spinning out of the ring into the air, and landing face first into the ground, skidding across and getting a mouthful of dirt. The entire class was silent when they saw Mizuki lying there motionless until one student spoke up. Damn. Shino said, which caused most of the students to look at him in shock since he was mostly quiet and never cursed. Said Aburame tilted his shades up out of embarrassment. Congratulations Naruto-kun. You knocked him out and made him eat dirt, though in my opinion you should have broken his nose. Natsumi stated while Eva snorted in amusement. Naruto walked out of the arena with his hands in his pockets but took his jacket from the stumped Iruka. Thanks for holding my jacket for me. he said as he hefted it over his shoulders while most of the girls squealed and whistled at him while walking towards a blushing Hinata, Ino, and Yakumo and grinned. Hey ladies, did you like my performance? He asked only to get a silent nod from him since they were too busy checking him out. Ino was the first to snap out her stupor. Okay Naruto, how did you get so well toned and why did you hide it from us? She bellowed, which caused him to sweat drop. Simple Ino-chan. I hate fangirls and I needed a way to tease you three. He said and suddenly wrapped an arm around the female Yamanaka, who squeaks in surprise and her blush grows when she feel the muscles in his arm, which made the other girls glare at the heiress. After an hour of evaluating the students' progress, the results came out with Naruto scoring a 100% with Sasuke possessing a 92%. Hinata was the top kunoichi with Ino and Yakumo following behind. As Hinata was talking to Ino and Yakumo about their progress, Naruto caught Kiba walking towards them pretending to act like he was gonna walk by them and narrowed his eyes when he saw the mud make an attempt to reach out and grab Hinata's rear with a grin on his face. As he was about to do that, another hand shot out and grabbed the Inuzuka's wrist, surprising him, and turned his head to see a pissed off Naruto glaring at him with cold, slit icy blue eyes and revealing his elongated canines. Don't even think about it, you mangy mutt, or I'll rip your arm off and hang it in my trophy room after beating the crap out of you, dumb. He snarled out threateningly and twisted Kiba's arm around his back and kicked him in the rear, sending him stumbling and crashing to the ground while Akamaru shook his head at his master. Naruto appeared behind the three girls and wrapped an arm around Hinata and Yakumo's waist and rested his chin on Ino's shoulders, which caused the three to eep in surprise. Hey Himes, he said as he held them closer and made their faces heat up. I have to say, all that training we did paid off, since you three are the top kunoichi in our age group. It was all thanks you, Naruto-kun. Yakumo stated. Maybe, but it is because you three are precious to me and wanted you to be capable of defending yourselves and not be weak like the Thames fangirls. He said and released them, and they turned around with full-blown smiles on their faces. Iruka approached them with 4 headbands, but the fourth one had a black cloth. Hinata, Ino, Yakumo, here are your leaf headbands. He said and handed them to the three. Hinata put hers around her neck, Ino wrapped hers around her waist, and Yakumo put hers around her left bicep. Iruka then turned his attention to Naruto and held the black leaf headband out. And here you go, Naruto. This headband is given to the Rookie of the Year. Congratulations, you've earned it. He said with a smile on his face. Naruto smiles back, takes the headband and ties it around his forehead. Thanks Iruka-sensei, he said and got a nod from the academy instructor, who turned around to pass out the rest. Naruto looked at the position the sun is at and looks back at the three. Say you guys want to celebrate at the ramen shop? I'm treating, he offered, which made them smile. That's sweet Naruto-kun, but I'll have to decline. My uncle is taking me to a restaurant later on today. Yakumo apologized. Yeah, same here. Mom's taking me out shopping as a graduation present. Ino replied. My parents are going to hold a celebration feast for me, Naruto-kun. Sorry, Hinata said with a solemn look on her face. Oh, I see, well that's okay. I'll see you three tomorrow then. He said as he turned around and to walk away, only for a hand to grab his, and the next thing he knew, Hinata kissed him on the left cheek, Ino kissed him on the right cheek, and Yakumo kissed him lightly on the lips, and afterwards backed up giggling when they saw his flushed face and walked off to meet their folks. Naruto managed to snap out of his stupor and rub the back of his head in embarrassment. Wow, well I might as well head to Ichiraku's and get some ramen. He said and shunpos away. Night. Naruto was walking back to his apartment, but then he saw some Chunin, Jonin, and a few Anbu leaping around the village and appeared to be looking for someone. That was when he saw a purple-haired Anbu who was wearing a cat mask stop on a rooftop looking around frantically. That was when a hand touched her shoulder and she instantly turned her head and was shocked to see a curious Naruto. Hey Neko-chan, what's got you and the higher-ups running around like an invasion or raid is gonna occur? He asked the female Anbu. We're looking for a traitor who snuck into the Hokage vault, killed 2 Chunin, and stole the forbidden scroll. The village is currently on lockdown. She explained. Really? Maybe I can help you find this traitor. He offered while she thought about it and nodded. It would be appreciated, Naruto-kun, but be careful. She warned and Shunshin's away. With Mizuki. Mizuki was leaping from tree to tree, grinning like a madman due to the fact that he managed to steal the forbidden scroll. Hey, that was too easy. Once I get out of the village and deliver this to Orochimaru-sama, I'll be invincible. He proclaimed, and was anxious to get his hands on the power that sealed in the scroll. That was when a foot struck him in the side of the head and sent the surprised man flying onto the ground and hitting it hard, tumbling a couple of times, losing the forbidden scroll and skids to a halt. The man groaned and slowly got up, clutching his head in pain. Well, would you looky here? Mizuki's eyes shot open since he recognized that voice. I found the traitor and the treasure. The man turned around and growled out in anger as he saw Naruto pat the large scroll and smirk at the man. You. He hissed out angrily. What are you doing here, boy? Naruto on the other hand smirks at the pissed off man and performs a hand sign, creating a Kage Bunshin shadow clone, and tossed it the scroll. Do you mind taking that back to the old man and tell him I'll bring the traitor as soon as possible? He instructed and got a nod from the Kage Bunshin, who shunpoed away, and Mizuki was about to go after him but was left back when a kunai almost hit him. Naruto replied while wagging his index finger with a smirk on his face. You're not going anywhere except the chopping block, Mizuki-tem. Said Chunin scowls and pulls a Fuma shuriken off his back, and that was when Iruka appeared at the scene. Naruto. Mizuki. What's going on? He asked too. Iruka. Naruto was the one who stole the forbidden scroll and had a Kage Bunshin take off and hide it somewhere. He lied. What? Naruto, is that true? Iruka asked, frowning only to see the blonde roll his eyes. No, and as you can see, he pulled out a weapon first while I on the other hand am weaponless. He responded, which made the man curse inwardly, but the smiles. Naruto, Iruka is just pretending to care about you. He's hiding things from you. 14 years ago, the Sandaime made a new law that forbids everyone to reveal what happened to the Kyuubi. Mizuki said with a wide grin. Iruka's eyes widened when he saw what the man was about to reveal. No, Mizuki. It's forbidden. Iruka yelled. It got killed by the Yondaime, right? Naruto asked with a mental grin. Come on, Mizuki-tem, did your grave. I'll even choose the color of your gravestone. No, he sealed the Kyuubi into the body of a child. In you. You are the Kyuubi no Yoko. Mizuki yelled and cackled like a madman. Iruka had a look of dread on his face and turned his head to see how Naruto would react, only to see the blonde have a bored look on his face. Are you done? He said in a cold and harsh voice that made the man stop his laughter and look at the blonde in shock. What? He asked and took a step back when he saw Naruto walk forward and pull out one of the small scrolls on his belt. I said, are you done acting like an idiot so I can kill you? I've known about Natsumi-chan since I was little, and apparently you're a fool to think I'm actually her since she is female, you dumbass. Naruto then unraveled it, tapped a seal with the kanji for crimson on it, and it glowed white, and in a puff of smoke, a blade appeared and dropped in this right hand. The grip has a gentle decorative bend that ends at a crimson tassel dangling from the pommel. Instead of a cross guard, there is a U-shaped decoration covering the first 3 or 4 inches of blade, with a flower petal design just as it meets a red string wrapping. The string is wrapped thrice around the hilt, with a 3-loop bow on one side and a folded paper decoration on the other, and the blade is straight and slim, though somewhat short, with the tip ending in a slanted razor-like edge instead of being tapered to a point. Yes everyone, it's Benihime, Kazuki's Zanpakuto. Now tell me, Mizuki, do you want to be carved up or just die from decapitation? Naruto asked coldly, causing Iruka to shiver from the way Naruto's voice sounded and Mizuki to back up a little. Why, you don't scare me, demon. He proclaimed and pulled one of the Fuma shuriken and twirled it around his hand in high speed. Now die. He screamed and threw the blade with all his might. Naruto, look out. Uruka screamed as he saw the spinning blade head towards his student and was unable to move in time to stop it. Naruto on the other hand smirks evilly and draws his blade back, and when the shuriken is close enough, he instantly cuts it in half and the two halves fall to the ground, shocking the two chunin. So it's like that, huh? Well, let me introduce you to my partner Tem, and let me tell you, she doesn't like it when someone tries to do ill harm to me, he said while the blade has a red aura surrounding it and appeared to be pulsing and vibrating. Nake, Benihime, sing, Crimson Princess. He cried and swung the blade diagonally, creating a strong and destructive crimson-colored energy blast that heads towards a stumped Mizuki who had little time to move as the fast-moving blast ascended towards his body. An explosion occurred and the area around them shook violently until the area cleared, revealing the unconscious and scorched form of Mizuki, who was sprawled out onto the ground. Naruto looked at the blade and smiled. Thanks for the help, Haim. He said to the blade that vibrated a "you're welcome" and was sealed away once again into the scroll. He looked at the knockout Chunin and rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment. Hey, guess I overdid it, but he should be alive, Naruto stated and got a nod from Iruka. Well then, let's get the traitor to a holding cell and inform the old man of what happened. Iruka walked over to Mizuki's unconscious form and hoists him over his shoulder. Hokage's office. As the small group approached the Hokage Tower, Iruka couldn't help but stare at his blonde companion. Iruka-sensei, I know you have some questions, however I'm afraid I can't answer all of them, but what I can tell you is that Natsumi-chan was not responsible for her attack on Konoha 14 years ago and was being manipulated that night and has regretted it ever since, Naruto said, and the man's eyes widen in disbelief but then scowls. How can that beast regret anything? The Kyuubi's a monster and was responsible for the death of my parents and the Yondaime. Iruka shot back. Naruto stopped in his tracks and gave Iruka a harsh look. Is that right? Well, tell me this then, Iruka-sensei. How many times has the strongest of the nine-tailed demons ever appeared in the mortal plane? Naruto asked in a low voice. At that, Iruka remained silent. Naruto was right. Unlike the other 8 Biju, Kyuubi had barely showed herself to in the human world, despite the so-called history of her being a being of malice and chaos. In fact, Naruto was her first container, while the other demons had had at least 2 or 3. The first time she appeared was during the battle with the Shodai Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha when they fought in the Valley of the End and was being controlled by Madara until Hashirama freed her of his influence and sent her back to the Makai realm. She is the queen of the foxes and rarely involves herself with humans, so why, pray tell, would she attack a village? She is an S-class demoness who has better things to do than burn a village to the ground unless someone here did something to piss her off or stole something of value to her. Trust me when I say stealing from a kitsune is not the smartest thing you can do. Naruto explained. I see. Iruka mumbled, deep in thought. Plus you shouldn't jump to conclusion when it comes to demons. After all, there are humans in this world who can be just as evil and conniving than any other demon. Take the Sandame's old student Orochimaru for example. The blonde stated, which made Iruka cringe. Good point. So Kyuubi is female, right? He asked and got a nod from Naruto. Does she happen to have a human form? I mean, kitsune do have the ability to shape-shift into any form, you know. Naruto grinned and nodded at the man. Oh, she doesn't. If you were to see her form, you'd more than likely die from blood loss from the nose. He answered, which made Natsumi blush while Eva giggled. Iruka had an incredulous look on his face. Really? Naruto, don't tell me you've been seduced by her form? He asked, which made Naruto stumble over and blush a little. What? No. Come on now, sensei, I may be young but I'm very mature for someone my age. He stated, but in his mind Natsumi was sending pictures in his mindscape of her doing provoking poses which made Naruto's brow twitch. Natsumi, stop it. He screamed in his mindscape, making her giggle even more, and blood dripped from her nose. Naruto, your nose is bleeding. Iruka stated blankly, and the blonde quickly wiped it off. Not seducing you, huh? He asked with a bit of humor in voice, and Naruto glared at the man. Don't make me summon Benihime. Plus you shouldn't talk about someone being a pervert, especially when you passed out from those Playboy pictures that were in your locker. He stated, and Iruka on the other hand paled but then glared at Naruto. Wait a minute, how do you know about that? He growled while the blonde genin grins. That was when 4 Anbu appeared in front of them. And just where have you guys been? You ought to be ashamed of yourselves, having a newly promoted genin face a traitor with no backup. And you call yourselves the elite of the village. He mocked playfully only to get slapped upside the head by an Anbu with platinum blonde hair that was tied up in a high ponytail and was wearing a chameleon mask. Shut up, smart, she said in an annoyed voice while the other 3 snickered. So you got the traitor and the scroll back. Chameleon then looked at the scorched form of Mizuki. Is he still alive? Because Ibiki hasn't had any decent toys to play with for a while. Iruka shivered when he heard one of the head of ANBU's T&I division and felt a little sorry for Mizuki. Damn. Poor bastard. Naruto said solemnly, but then did a 180 and grinned like a madman. Oh well, no skin off my nose, he's all yours. Naruto said and tossed the unconscious man over to the bare-masked Anbu while the other's sweat dropped. I'm starting to think it was a bad idea to introduce him to Ibiki when he was staying at the HQ. Ferret whispered to Owl, who nodded in agreement. Better Ibiki than Anko. Kami knows what would happen if the squirt met her. Owl replied back, making Ferret cringe in fear. Pissing off Ibiki would get you a trip to the psychiatrist, but pissing off Anko is a free trip to hell. Remember what happened to the last person who pissed her off? He spent the last month being slowly digested in the stomach of her snake summon. Ferret answered, and at a dango shop Anko Mitarashi sneezed on her dango and a murderous look formed on her face. Whoever is talking about me is gonna die for spoiling my dinner. She roared, causing those in the restaurant to get the hell out of Dodge lest they suffer her wrath. Naruto paused and blinked for a moment. Hey sensei, I just heard someone scream out bloody murder. Any idea who it is? He asked the now pale Chunin and scared as hell Anbu. Said scarred man snapped out of his stupor and laughed nervously. Someone who can be as dangerous as our leader when pissed. He stated. Naruto looked at him for a few seconds and shrugs. Whatever, I just feel sorry for whoever talked about said person. He said, and noticed Ferret was gone. Hey, where's Ferret? Naruto asked Chameleon, who rubbed the back of her head. He left his kettle on, Naruto-kun. So where is the scroll? She asked. Oh, I had a cage bunshin take it back to the old man while dealing with Mizuki Tem. It should be back at his office now. He explained and got a nod from her and the 3 shunshin away. Naruto, how do you know those Anbu? He asked the rookie if the year who smirks. They were a few of my caretakers when I was younger. He answered and then placed a hand on Iruka's shoulder. Hold on and don't blink. Naruto replied, confusing Iruka, and then shunpos away. Hokage Tower. Naruto and Iruka appear in Hiruzen's office, and said man blinked in shock. What the? Was that Shunshin Naruto? Iruka asked the blonde, who shook his head. Nope, that was an advanced version I made up during my training called Shunpo or Flash Step. The only difference between it and Shunshin is that I don't need to use hand seals for it and I can use it in a fight. He answered and saw the forbidden scroll sitting beside Hiruzen. Thank you for dealing with that traitor and getting the scroll back, Naruto. The Kami no Shinobi said gratefully while his surrogate grandson grins. Iruka, you may leave since the search is over. Iruka nods and Shunshin's out of the office. So I take it you watched the whole thing in your crystal ball, right? Naruto asked the old man, who chuckled and blew smoke out of his nostrils. Yes, I did, and that sword of yours was interesting to say the least. I believe you called it Benihime, correct? He asked. Naruto nodded with a smirk on his face. Did you get that sword from your friend? Hiruzen quoted with his fingers, and Naruto nods once again. In a way, yes, but I made the sword and based it off the blades the 7 swordsmen of the mist have in their arsenal and converted some of Natsume's chakra into the blade to make it more lethal, though the blast I hit Mizuki with was merely a fraction of the damage it can really do. Naruto stated, and now Hiruzen had a look of interest on his face. Really? You've never told me about making your own swords, my boy. He stated and said. Blonde rubbed the back of his head. Hey, even I have to have my secrets, Gramps. Naruto replied. Speaking of secrets, Naruto, since you graduated from the Ninja Academy, you'll be able to live in your dad's estate as per agreement to his will. He said as he looked into his desk and pulled out a golden envelope with the Namikaze clan symbol on it as well as the Uzumaki clan spiral. He opened the envelope and placed the papers in front of Naruto. All I need you to do is sign the deed to the estate, and everything ranging from the land, house, and clan jutsu are all yours. He stated and handed a pen to Naruto. Naruto grinned and signed the papers before putting them back into the envelope and putting it into a small scroll. Also, your mother left you her clan's summoning contract. She left it in your father's house and wanted you to sign it as soon as possible. Sweet. Oh, and Gramps, can we keep my inheritance a secret until the next Chunin exam, because the last thing I need is assassins from Iowa coming after me or those civilian and elders wanting to get their greedy hands on my family's wealth. Naruto requested. Oh yeah, I forgot about them. Kami being Hokage sucks. He muttered. Naruto on the other hand grins. Oh, I think I have an idea that'll solve our problems with those teams and keep them in line. Sarutobi gave Naruto a puzzling look until he saw the gleam in his surrogate grandson's eyes. The last time I saw that look, you pranked the entire Uchiha clan when some of them tried to burn your house down. So what's your plan, Naruto? He asked Naruto, whose grin grew even more as he sat down in a chair. Oh, this plan will knock your socks off. It involves me possessing bloodlines that's older than the Rakudo Sennin's Rinnegan, Sage of the Six Paths Samasara Eye, and ancient techniques that are even more powerful than ninjutsu, and only I can use them. He stated, and the man's eyes widened a little since the sage was the founder of the ninja world, but what interested him more was the fact that Naruto knew techniques that are even stronger than the ninja arts. Really? Well then let's hear it, my boy. Sarutobi said, and Naruto began to explain. The next morning, Naruto was entering the graduation class when he heard the sound of a slap and a female yelping entered his ears. As he entered the room, his eyes were as cold as ice at what he saw. It was a smug Sasuke was standing over Yakumo, who was on her knees and appeared to have her hand covering her left eye. Within mere seconds, he appeared beside her, surprising the entire class, and he knelt down to help her up to her feet. He gently pulled her hand from her eye and it was slightly swollen. Yakumo-chan, who did this? Naruto asked in a concerned, dangerous tone, and she pointed to a smug Sasuke whose smug look turned into shock and fear due to the fact that Naruto was releasing a burst of ki on the prick. The next thing Sasuke saw was Naruto's fist striking him in his right eye and sends him flying into the wall. Consider that payback, asshole, the blonde said coldly while the prick groaned in pain. Naruto's hand glowed green and he placed it over Yakumo's eye and started to heal it until the swelling died down and the color returned. Thank you, Naruto-kun, she said thankfully, and I smiled. That moment was interrupted by the pink-haired howler monkey. Naruto, how dare you hit my Sasuke-kun, I'm gonna. She didn't get the chance to finish because now she was frozen in fear and finding it hard to breathe due to the fact that Naruto's cold gaze was locked onto her. Shut the hell up, you Uchiha-loving whore, or I'll leave a permanent imprint of my boot on your super-sized forehead. He snapped at the girl who did the smart thing for once and shuts her trap. So Yakumo-chan, why did that prick hit you? Yakumo frowned while they took their seats next to Hinata and Ino. He kept making comments about you being a nobody who stole his title as the top of the academy, so I told him to shut up and stop being a bitch about it. He didn't like being belittled by someone from a lesser clan, so I made an off comment about his entire clan being 6 feet under while mine is still around, so he caught me off guard and backhanded me. She explained, which caused him to frown. You doby. Who the hell do you think you are, striking me like that just because I put your bitch in her PLA? Sasuke stopped yelling and found himself being slammed into the wall with Benihime pressed against his throat. The only bitch here is you, Uchiha, and unlike you and your pathetic clan, I can back up my claims and kill you without even trying. If you ever attack her again, I'll finish what your sister started and send to join your bastard of a father to the afterlife. Naruto threatened with a dark look in his eyes and then slammed the prick back into the wall again before going back to his seat. A few minutes later, Iruka walked in with a clipboard in his hands and saw Kiba, Sasuke, and Sakura glaring at Naruto's back. I don't even want to know. He thought and started to call out the teams. Team 7 will be Inuzuka Kiba. The mutt perked up. Haruno Sakura. Kiba had to cover his ears as his new teammate began screaming in protest, and Uchiha Sasuke. Your sensei will be Hatake Kakashi. Now his ears almost bled from her cheers. Sasuke, however, was far from pleased and was pissed he was stuck with two weaklings. Ha! Take that, Ino pig. The pink-haired girl turned towards her rival who had an annoyed look on her face. How many times do I have to tell you, billboard, that I'm not interested in the emo prick? Kami, you're so annoying, Ino said, which made the pink-haired girl look at her in shock. Besides, Naruto-kun's a better choice than that jerk, since he wouldn't strike a girl for no reason. Unless it was you, of course. She finished with a grin on her face and wrapped an arm around a smug blonde. Team 8, Iruka continued, is Shino Aburame, Yakumo Kurama, and Hinata Hyuga. Your sensei will be Yuahi Kurenai. The three exchanged a few nods of acknowledgement, though Hinata was a little disappointed for not being on the same team as Naruto, but thankful Kiba wasn't on her squad because she'd neuter him with a Juken strike to the nuts. Team 9 is still active. Team 10 Nara Shikamaru, Akamichi Choji, and Yamanaha Ino. Your sensei will be Sarutobi Asuma. The two boys high-fived while Ino hit her head on the desk, wondering what higher deity did she anger to be stuck with them of all people, but then she realized something. Hey Iruka-sensei, what about Naruto? She asked. Ha, the Dobi is getting held back. So much for being Rookie of the Year. Kiba laughed as he turned to look at Naruto, was mockingly looking around in confusion. Hey, did anyone else aside from me hear a barking dog? The blonde asked, making a few of the others laugh and piss off Kiba, who started to stand up angrily. Why, you piece of, Kiba snarled out. Sit down, Inuzuka, Iruka ordered, and the boy did, mumbling curses about blonde assholes. To answer your question, Ino, Naruto is not going to be held back. Usually when there aren't enough graduates for a three-man cell, the graduate or graduates with the lowest scores get held back, which is not in any way, shape, or form Naruto's case, since he's the rookie of this year's generation, gaining perfect scores in every test and going beyond the academy's standards. He paused for a moment and let the information sink in. So in this case the Hokage has decided to do something different concerning him. Like what? Choji asked, since he knew Shikamaru, while lazy, was very smart but got the lowest scores, and only because he wasn't motivated. After proving his abilities by easily defeating Mizuki, who was a Chunin, and considering he doesn't need to be a part of a team him because of his newfound skill, the Hokage has decided to make Naruto Uzumaki the first Tokubetsu Genin specialist, meaning he's a higher rank than the rest of you. Iruka finished and watched the awe, surprise, amusement and anger on his former students' faces. Why does the Dobi get such an offer and I, an elite like the Uchiha, doesn't? Sasuke demanded furiously. Yeah, only Sasuke-kun is worthy of that, not some clanless orphanless losers whose parents probably got themselves killed on their first mission. Haruno said smugly, only to begin trembling a moment after, as the temperature seemed to drop. Why? Because Naruto suddenly appeared in front of her desk with his face a few inches close to her and was giving her a look that would make Orochimaru shit himself. Listen and listen well, you sorry excuse of a human. Just because you're weak and insecure about your so-called skills as a ninja doesn't give you the right to insult my parents. You don't know who my parents were or how they died, and I suggest you shut your mouth and stop dragging my image of them in the mud, or your mother will find herself childless. Naruto threatened with anger laced in his voice while releasing killer intent on the bitch, who sunk into her seat, whimpering and wetting herself from the murderous gaze. He vanished and once again sat in between Hinata and Yakumo while Sasuke was glaring at the speed he showed. Please continue, sensei. Iruka got out of his stupor and rubbed the back of his head. Oh yeah, like I said, Naruto will apparently be a higher rank than the rest of you because he is far above most you in terms of skill, so he'll be teamed up with a Jonin of the Hokage's choosing. Naruto, go on ahead and head to the tower to meet your sensei. Naruto nodded and stood up. Good luck, my Himes and Kiba. If you so much as even think about harassing Hinata, I'll neuter you like the dog you are and send those little beads you call nuts back to your mother in a pickle jar. He threatened the Inuzuka, who gulped and clung to his family jewels, and the blonde shunpos out of the classroom, shocking everyone and pissing off Sasuke. Hokage Tower. Sarutobi was currently glaring at the paperwork he had on his desk, and that was when Naruto appeared. Hey old man, how's life treating you? Naruto asked, grinning at the man who looked like he was trying to burn holes in the stack of paper on his desk. Terrible. I think your father did the sealing just so that he didn't have to deal with this god-awful paperwork. He growled out while the blonde sweat dropped. Damn, I didn't know paperwork was that much of a burden. I'm starting to rethink my goal in being Kage if this is what I have to look forward to. He muttered to himself. Anyways, Iruka-sensei told me to head over here about my rank as a Tokubetsu genin. Naruto asked the man who smirked. Ah yes, your rank. Well, to put it simply, Naruto, you're way above the other students in terms of jutsu and skill, and putting you on their teams would more than likely hinder your skills. He answered. Oh, I see. But so that you know, I also helped Ino, Hinata, and Yakumo with their training while we were in the academy, so they will do fine. Naruto explained, getting a raised brow from the man. If anything, they'd more than likely be high chunin. He answered. Hiruzen groaned and rubbed the bridge of his nose. Please tell me you get their parents' consent, Naruto, because I can only do so much to help you. He begged the blonde, who chuckled. Of course I did. For one thing, Ino's folks like me, as does Hinata's mom, but I think her dad tolerates me. He quoted. Though he isn't a jerk like Fugaku, he has his moments. Anyways, Yakumo-chan's uncle said he was indebted to me when I helped her with her problem. Hiruzen gave Naruto a blank stare. What? I didn't make them do anything that would damage their bodies. The blonde stated. Just checking. Hiruzen said, smirking, and Naruto's face faltered to the ground but got back up, glaring at his surrogate grandfather. Say, before we continue this any further, I'd like to introduce you to my second guest. Naruto said, only for Hiruzen to raise an eyebrow. Sorry, I'm referring to my other roommate aside from Natsumi-chan. He finished, and Hiruzen's eyes grew wide. Wait, you have something else aside from Natsumi sealed in you? It's not the Edo demon you both got rid of, is it? Hiruzen asked worriedly, and Naruto shook his head. No, not that parasite. My other roommate is at the very least stronger than the vixen and was sealed into me along with her by the Shinigami and Kami. The reason I didn't tell you in the first place was because I didn't know how you would react to me having two guests residing in me, and no, she's not a biju, well, not anymore. He explained, and the man sighs in relief but then perks up. Wait, you mean by your other tenant isn't a biju anymore? He asked. To make a long story short, Eva, my other guest, was a powerful being before the days of the Rakudo Sennin, but one day she lost control of the power she gained throughout her life and was transformed into a Jubi and caused the first apocalypse. The Rakudo used his powers to stop her and separated her powers amongst the world and sealed away her spirit into the void until the higher-ups decided to give her a chance to redeem herself by sealing her into me along with Natsumi with her powers. She was the one responsible with my new bloodline that we talked about. Naruto stated. I see. Very well, Naruto, I'll meet your other guests, so what do we do? Sarutobi asked. This. The blonde performed a few seals and his hand glowed. Afterwards, he places it on Hiruzen's forehead, and the next thing he knew, he found himself in what appeared to be the decorated hallways of a medieval castle alongside Naruto. What the? Naruto, where exactly are we? Hiruzen asked while the blonde walked through the hallway with the man following him, and Hiruzen noticed there were pictures of people wearing different colored robes and wielding odd weapons, staffs, and books, and lining the hallways were armors standing at attention. My mindscape, of course. I just did some altering with it since the sewer and cage didn't really suit the ladies. Naruto replied. And the seal? Hiruzen asked with a little concern in his voice. It's still intact though it's been altered, so that they would be allowed to create things while residing here, like this castle and the forest surrounded by mountains, for example. Naruto explained, and they came upon a large red iron door. Naruto stepped forward and slowly pushed them open, revealing a highly decorated throne room that appeared to have golden carvings of dragons coiling around the crimson-colored pillars, and in between the pillars were statues of phoenixes with their wings spread, as well as statues of mages wielding magic books and scepters. "By Kami, this place is incredible," he said as they walked towards the throne. "Thank you, Hiruzen Sarutobi, I'm glad you like it," said a soft and feminine voice, which surprised Hiruzen, and he looked around cautiously, only for Naruto to place a hand on the man's shoulder. "Chill, Gramps, that's just Eva-chan," he assured the man. That was when a swirl of light appeared in front of them, and when it died down, it revealed the female mage in all her glory, with her cape waving sideways. Hiruzen gaped at her beauty, and when he looked into her eyes, they explained everything. Her entire being radiated power and finesse at its fullest, and she possessed the eyes of a being with no equal unless they were god-classed. Naruto wasn't kidding. This woman hold power that is even greater than Natsume's. Never in my life have I felt such anxiety and fear within my person. It's as if she's the vast ocean and I'm nothing but a puddle, he thought to himself. Greetings, Hiruzen Sarutobi. I am Evangeline Rorek, the supreme master of the ancient mage arts, granddaughter of the Malchior Rorek, the master of the mage arts, and daughter of the dragon mage Mordecai Rorek and phoenix mage Celine Rorek, and the former Jubi. She introduced with a bow and then stood straight up and smiled. I've heard a lot of great things about you from Naruto-kun, she said, and saw the proud smirk on his face. And the bad, she finished with a bit of humor, causing the man to face fault and the blonde to laugh at his surrogate grandfather. Hiruzen stood back up, glaring at Naruto. What did you tell her, boy? And so help me, if it's that blackmail, I'll give you a first-hand experience on how I used to punish my students in Asuma when he was younger, he said in a tone that promised pain, which caused Naruto to sweat bullets and saw the gleam in the professor's eyes. Nothing bad, I swear. I just told her how you were a pervert who reads smut when no one's around, Naruto answered frantically. Eva, on the other hand, looked amused at this and giggled. You weren't kidding when you told me he acted just like my grandpa, Naruto-kun. I haven't seen you this scared since that time that cat-masked Anbu threatened to use your hide to sharpen her sword after you stitched socks in the shape of cat tails to her pants, she replied, which made Hiruzen pause and look at Naruto for a moment. You did that? He asked Naruto, who slowly nodded his head, and the man busted out laughing. Oh Kami, I can never forget that day. You ran into my office like the Shinigami was after you, begging me to hide you from a demon cat that was out for your blood. Oh, I wish I had a camera when that happened, he said, grinning like a madman, and Naruto fumed. That wasn't funny, Gramps. You should have seen the look in her spoke murder, and I swear I saw the Shinigami hovering over her and reaching out for me when she drew her sword, the blonde said frantically. Oh ho ho, I'm sorry, boy, but that was the first time I've ever seen you fear for your life. Luckily I convinced her to let you off with a warning and swore to give her a raise in her salaries. Anyhow, where is the vixen at? Hiruzen asked, only for Natsumi to appear in a swirl of fire, grinning. Someone called me, she asked, and saw Hiruzen. Hey old monkey, I see you haven't kicked the bucket yet. Hiruzen sweat drops and sighs. I still have plenty of life left in me, Natsumi-san. At the very least I can live long enough to give Naruto here the hat, he replied, patting the boy on the head. He also talked to me about some very interesting techniques he was learning from Evangeline-san here that were said to be even more powerful than ninjutsu. And I take it you were teaching him the chakra exercises and ninja arts, right? He asked Natsumi, who nodded. Yep. Have two powerful beings with centuries of knowledge have its good points. Like the library, for example, the vixen stated. Eva snapped her fingers and the room shimmers for a while but then forms into the library. Hiruzen's eyes bugged out to the point where they'd fall out of his head. Are these all the books you've read, Naruto? Hiruzen asked, only for the blonde to snort. Nope, though I did read half of the books in this room, and whoever said knowledge was power wasn't lying. I'm surprised my brain can still function from reading and studying half of these. Naruto commented. Wait, you read half of this library's worth of books? How the hell did you pull that off? He asked, interested. Simple. In my mindscape, time moves a lot slower than it does in the real world. I could get 10 years worth of studying in under 5 hours. Naruto answered. Plus, most of Eva-chan's techniques required me to read a lot and understand the constructions of the spells I learned so that I don't hurt myself. Naruto explained. I see. Also, when you stated the seal was altered, does that mean they can leave the seal whenever they can and have no side effect whatsoever? He asked cautiously, since he didn't want anything bad to happen to Naruto, who thought about it. They can, but they don't technically have a physical body. At the very least, I can take only inanimate objects out like the books and weapons, since I'm trying to find a way to get them out of the seal and a way to make them bodies. Naruto answered. Anything else you wish to know, Sarutobi? Eva asked the man, who shook his head. No, I think I've learned plenty about you and I thank you both for helping Naruto. He said and got a nod from the two. That was when Naruto placed his hand on Hiruzen's shoulder and they once again appeared in his office. That was a very interesting meeting. I never would have thought that I'd meet a being stronger than the ruler of the Kitsune clan. Sarutobi mused. So is there anything else you need, Naruto? Actually, yeah. Do you by any chance know any good training spots I can go to so that I can work on my skills in private away from prying eyes? Naruto asked the old Kage, who was rubbing his bearded chin in thought. Well, there's Training Ground 44, which is also known as the Forest of Death, and it's a place only a few people enter. He stated. Okay, I picked that one. Naruto replied. Are you sure? That place isn't like any other forest and it's even fenced off from the public. Even Anbu class ninja think twice before entering that place. He informed Naruto. Said last Uzumaki. Namikaze blinked and shrugged. I'm positive. Besides, I'm pretty whatever's in that forest can't be any scarier than Natsumi or Eva. Also, what about taking missions? Naruto asked Hiruzen, who snapped his fingers. Damn, I forgot about that part. Well, normally you'd have to do D-ranked missions that involved doing labor inside the village, but with your rank I can allow you to start doing C-ranked missions that range from escorting clients to their destination and getting rid of bandits and pirates, but I'll probably have a Chunin or Jonin join you in the mission to analyze your progress and give you more advanced missions. So how is your progress in sealing going? He explained and asked. Great, actually. Eva taught me her version of sealing, which her kin used, and I have to say it puts our version of sealing to shame. Matter of fact, the mages were the founders of the sealing arts and could do things that would but my dad's and my mother's skill in sealing to shame. Naruto stated. Now Hiruzen was interested. Naruto explained to him about the abilities the mages possessed but didn't know they were the founders of the sealing arts. Now I'm interested. Just what exactly can her form of sealing different than ours? He asked Naruto. Well, technically it's not different, since most of the seals we use today. Ours is merely a lesser version of her form of sealing. Matter of fact, my mom's and dad's clan's form of sealing was closely similar to Eva's in terms of Jikuken ninjutsu, space-time techniques, and Kekai ninjutsu, barrier techniques. Hers, however, are more powerful, and I was taught how to use her version. At the very least, I'm very proficient in sealing, but nowhere close to being at my folks' level yet. He explained. Well, I'm off to train for a while and then I'll be back for a mission later on. Also, if you need to kill the paperwork faster, use shadow clones, since their knowledge is passed on to the user after it's destroyed. Afterwards, Naruto heads out and towards his new training ground, leaving Hiruzen shocked and stumped until he decided to snap out of his stupor. So that is how Minato got it all done. Sneaky bastard, if he wasn't dead I'd be beating him to death with my adamantine staff. He growled out and did the crisscross seal, creating several clones who got to work on the paperwork while he pulled out his ICHA book.